Welcome back. Well, that last episode was pretty emotional. I ended it that way because that's honestly how I remember my day ending. One minute I was awake, and the next minute I had crashed for the second time. The reason I was having trouble breathing is I was diagnosed with pneumonia, and my lungs were actually filling up with fluid. I was put into another medically induced coma for the next 3 days. I never ended up going to the cath lab for my heart. It turns out that my hemoglobin was very low, and once I received a few units of blood, my EKG went back to normal. After being in a coma for another 3 days, the doctors finally decided to wake me up. When I woke up, I realized that I had a breathing tube in my mouth. This is the second time that I've had a breathing tube. The first time, I have no memory of it because I was in a coma for 12 days and they took the tube out before I was awake. This time was completely different. I had no idea what happened to me. I had no idea why I had a breathing tube in my mouth. The last memory I had, I was in a room with my mom and my sister, and I was having trouble breathing. And now I woke up in a bed and I had a breathing tube and I was unable to communicate with anybody. I then quickly realized that I had no mobility from my shoulders down. I couldn't tell anybody. I had no way of expressing the fact that I was paralyzed from my shoulders down. I was terrified. I was so scared. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what happened to me. I just knew that there was no way I could move. The nurses were constantly asking me to squeeze their hand or move my toe, and I couldn't do it. And I had no way to tell them that I couldn't do it. It wasn't until a few days later that one of the nurses had noticed that I just hadn't been moving in a few days. And they started to get alarmed and were asking for some tests to be done. And that's when some things started to get in motion. A neuromuscular doctor came to see me. He performed a test on my nerves and my muscles. He then thought that I had severe weakness due to the trauma that my body had been through. Because I couldn't talk, we had to come up with a way to communicate with people. My family came up with a great idea. We took a piece of paper and we wrote on the top, "Please ask Jay one of these questions." And then we put it into two columns, column A and column B, and I had about 10 to 15 words in each column. This is seriously what I had to do for 11 days. A nurse would come in the room, I'd move my head like this, and the nurse would be like, "Oh, what's that?" And she'd go over to the window and grab a piece of paper, bring it over in front of me, and then she would read the questions to me. And I would basically nod or go like this until she got to the right one. And that is how I communicated with people for 11 days. We also had a word board. It was very challenging to use. Me and my sister were actually pretty good at it, but we used that piece of paper more so than anything else for me to communicate for 11 days. For the 222 days I've currently been in the hospital, those 11 days take the cake, by far. Hardest 11 days I've ever had to do in my life. Not being able to talk, you guys know how much I like to talk. Not being able to communicate, not being able to move, stuck with my thoughts day in and day out, stuck in a bed. It was the hardest mental struggle that I've ever gone through. I hope I never go through something like that again. Please stay tuned for my next episode where I get news that'll change my life forever. For Jay's Picks of the Week, Netflix, American Factory, Crave, The Loudest Voice, Prime, The Looming Tower. Thanks for watching my videos and please subscribe below.